So, good morning. I notice in the programme it says Eastern Europe. Now, my Polish friends are very concerned that we remember Poland is Central Europe, not Eastern Europe. So, yeah, please remember that. But actually, my connection with the Polish Sangha came through Eastern Europe, through Russia and the Ukraine. You get the difference. So, in the 1990s, I followed other order members visiting St. Petersburg in Russia from Helsinki in Finland, where I have been visiting regularly. And we set up a translation project, translating Buddhist books into Russian. And our first book was The Guide to the Buddhist Path in Russian. This was our first book, which came out, I think, in 1998, something like that. A copy of this book, somehow or other, found its way to an alternative bookstall in a market in Odessa, in the south of Ukraine on the Black Sea. For those of you whose geography is not that great, the Black Sea is well south, near the Crimea. Odessa is like across from Istanbul. So you're well south there. A copy of this guide in Russian was picked up by a group of friends practicing Shorinjo Kempo, which is a Japanese martial art with a Buddhist background. And they wanted to know more about Buddhism. They hadn't been finding out all they wanted to about Buddhism. So they read this book, they passed it round. They were excited by what they read, and they wrote to Bhante, asking him to be their teacher. Please be our teacher. I don't know what route that letter took, but anyway, it arrived, Bhante replied, and he passed it on to me, as I had this Russian connection. I got in touch with these friends in Odessa and ended up visiting quite regularly. Every year I'd go for a week, and we'd have a week of activities every evening and then over a weekend. And then along came that horrible civil war. And the friends there felt it was unsafe. They didn't feel they wanted to take responsibility for me visiting. In the meantime, Suvanavira had moved to Moscow. Suvanavira was born in Russia, of Russian parents, but moved to the UK when he was 4 years old, and he never felt he quite belonged and was always drawn to Russia, and he moved to Moscow to rediscover his Russian roots and see about maybe eventually establishing Triratna in Moscow. So I left Russia to him, and in the meantime, I was also getting to know Nitya Bandhu, who'd set up a centre in Krakow. And between us, we came up with the idea of a retreat in Poland for people from the Ukraine, since I couldn't visit anymore, from Russia and from Poland. So the first retreat I led in Poland, there were 4 men from the Ukraine. There was Suvanavira and a young woman from Moscow, and a Russian woman now living in Germany who used to translate for me in St. Petersburg. So we've had 4 of these retreats now with people coming from Russia, Ukraine and Poland, plus some other order members from some other places. And we're also now being joined by Mitra's friends from Warsaw, where activities have also been started. So, this brings us to Central Europe, to Krakow, and my meeting with the bright, mostly youthful Polish Sangha that I met there. And I'm very pleased this morning just to be setting the bigger scene for that meeting and to let them say something themselves about the what it's like to be living and practicing in Poland these days. So first of all, I'm going to ask Anya to introduce two other of her Polish friends. Anya was here on the first, I think, Young Women's Dharma Life course, and then living and working here for a period. She's now back in Poland, but she's definitely something of a bridge between the Sangha in Poland and the Sangha here.
And as Saddhaloka said, I used to live here, firstly being on the Dharma Life course and then living and working as a part of the Adhisthana community, which was a delight. But my first encounter with the Dharma happened in Poland, in our center that I've introduced yesterday. And one of the biggest contexts for me was actually the retreats that we lead there. And one of my first big long meditation retreat was the one that Saddhaloka led in 2013, and which was the Ukrainian, Russian and Polish Sangha coming together. And it was actually a retreat where I consciously made a decision to ask for ordination on that retreat. And what strikes me mostly about those retreats are people who are coming from Ukraine. And they're actually coming from a very difficult background. As Saddhaloka mentioned, there's been a civil war happening out there. And it really strikes me that they're coming there constantly every year, coming and visit us, because it's and continue to practice the Dharma back at their home with not an easy background, not only social and political, but they don't have any center, they live far away. There's no leader or dharmachari or dharmacharini living there, and they're just constantly coming back. Actually, I've heard from one person who's coming every year to Poland saying that it takes 1 year for them to save money to come on this retreat. How inspiring is that, and how big is that? So all of them are wonderful. They're really warm, strong people who just actually create, I feel that we all create Sangha in Central and Eastern Europe, a big Sangha now. So now I'd like to hand over to my friends Patryk and Anna, who we all met in Krakow, and we got to know each other through being together on retreats and getting to know each other through the center. And I will start from Patryk, as I know Patryk a bit longer. We've met for the first time 5 years ago. And I do remember when I've been introduced to Patryk, and I remember his positivity and open-hearted energy. So Patryk is a very, very generous person. He's putting himself very much into the Sangha activities. He's supporting classes there, leading classes for the newcomers. And he's a real support to me as well, I feel. I don't think he knows that, but when I got back from living here for a few years, I did feel a bit lonely. Obviously, this is a new context for me, even if it's going back home. And Patryk was very present for me there, and I felt that heartfelt connection and some kind of depth of practice that we both suddenly we ended up having in common. I just like to introduce Patryk, a very positive spirit, and he's going to speak for himself. Thank you.
You know, if someone told me like 9 years ago that one day I will come for Buddhist International Gathering, I would just look at him and probably shout and escape. That was actually me like 9 years ago when I was an engineer, a salesperson, living in a country when there's a really strong Christian things. And when I first time encountered Mincha Bandhu and our center, I just came there just for meditation. It was like I was a person struggling with periods of depression, and things make me a very nervous person, and it was something that I wanted to join because I felt that somehow meditation is going to be really good thing, but meditation and nothing else. It took me like 2 years just to attend first puja, and it was weird. I'm just talking about because, for me, it's very important person that the people I've encountered was real people, really generous people, and I think first time in my life in Polish Saddhaloka, the Buddhist center, I encountered friendship. I think this is the most thing in my experience of Sangha in Poland. Another thing was people who came. I mean, people from England, mostly people from England. And I would like to say that when I've met people like Paramartha, Paramashanti, Jinaraja, Satyaraja, Rijumati, Saddhaloka, Paramabandhu, Vidyatara, Pasanamati, of course, my first touch of those people were, they are weird. They have weird names. They do such a weird things, like this gentleman there, who came to Poland, and worked for 2 months building our center and not received any money for that. Karuna Bandhu. Okay.
I got some money for that.
Oof. Anyway, just those, there was, completely different things that in my values of my life. And so it took me 9 years to just to believe, and I could say, let's say 7 or something, 7-8 years, just to believe that there is something not artificial, and there is really something worth to involve. And 3 years ago, I became Mitra, and 2 years ago, I asked for the ordination. And once again, when someone would told me 9 years ago that I will do such a things, I would escape with shouting. Thank you very much, and I'm really pleased to be here.
So now I'll introduce Anya, who's going to speak next. And with Anya, I do have personal connection too. We're together in a GFR group. Since I got back, I've been invited to join the group that Anya was part in. And again, that was a real support to me, just have that context of women who are practicing together, committed, and who ask for ordination. But I got to know Anya a little bit 2 years ago on the women's retreat, and we haven't met. It was our first meeting up there. And just before that retreat, my mum got really ill, and I didn't know what to do on the retreat, and I was talking to Anya about it, and I had some difficulties with the transport. I didn't know how to go and visit my mum, and Anya suddenly said, well, you can just take my car. And generously offered me to use her car to go and see my mum without really knowing me, and using a car to go every day to her work. So this is one of the qualities that I see in Anya. Anya is generous. She does, which actually Patryk and Anna, they both have this in common. They're very generous. Anya does give herself to the Sangha. She also supports classes and is leading classes for newcomers, the same that Patryk is doing. And recently we had a leaving due, because Anya is now here on the course, you'll probably hear about it. We had a leaving due for Anya, and someone said about her that she's a person that one can rely on. And that's a quality that I really admire, and it's true. You can tell you can rely on Anya. She will just do whatever is needed around the center, and it's a treasure to have that kind of person around. So, Anya.
Hi everyone. It's really moving to look at all of you. I really feel privileged and honored to be able to speak to you today. And I would have thought as Patryk that I will be standing in International Gathering 4 years ago when I joined a meditation center. And my reason was exactly as Patryk. It was scientifically proven that meditation supports the way how the brain functions. So this was my reason. There is a scientific proof, so go ahead and try the meditation out. And then I walked through the doors, and I was just like, it was like amazing to see the warmth of the people, welcoming smiles. So it was something which reconnected me with my very childhood experience when I was walking around and just going to people and introducing myself as a small child, this kind of connection, interconnectedness. And it was really strongly felt in this Sangha, which was amazing. And then with experiencing retreats and teachers coming from UK, after 2 years I asked to be a mitra, and after 4 months I asked for ordination. And I came, it was kind of obvious that if I really feel that this is my path, that this is the next step to go further. And it was amazing to come here on my first GFR retreat last June, you know, with all of those sorts of feelings. In Poland, I knew everyone. We have small retreats, so I knew people, everything is nice and cozy, and then I'm going to UK, English is my first language, I don't know the people, how it will be, and I will find myself, all of the stuff. And then I came into Triratna, and the moment I went into the premises, it was magic there. And I was welcomed so warmly that even that the language was different, we had different conditioning. There was something very common. So when we started to speak, it was amazing to see the same longing of the hearts, the same inspiration, the same aspiration, and also the same pains, the same situation which all of us has when we see our unskillfulness, and it is painful. When we see our self-use, and this is painful, and that we all share that. It doesn't matter from when we are, that this kind of common element goes through our conditioning. And definitely the conditioning in Poland is different. We are very much Catholic-based, so 90% of Poles are Catholic, and you will see that because of communism. We were in a very homogeneous society. So for some of our Sangha members, it might be very difficult to say that they are Buddhist. One of my friends said that when talking to a parent about us, she heard you burn in hell. So it might be really very hard and courageous to say that we are Buddhist because of a really high homogeneity of the society. And then what we see that quite often people quite fast ask for ordination after being a mitra, because when they recognize that this is their path, they would like to take it further. And there's also something that is quite visible in terms how many of our GFR mitras are outside of Poland. Many of them, they really strive to go and to really immerse in Dharma, to experience what it's like to live in the community, how it's like to work for a right livelihood. So this is something that I experience here and I'm experiencing. This is also the reason why I'm on the Dharma Life course and also inspired by Anya, who did the first course. So this, and as I've said, although we have different conditions in Poland, we have a bit different conditions and conditioning anywhere, it's very amazing to see how this heart longing combines us, how it is common and unites us. And this gathering really, I will feel it here. So thank you very much.